Tuesday afternoon, Rabbi Leisman and I took a field trip. We took 2 bar mitzvah students into the large sanctuary. You think, that's a field trip? We coincidentally each had a student in our office, and they were studying the same portion because I had the mincha for one Shabbat afternoon this winter, and he had the student who had the same Torah portion the next Shabbat morning. And we took them in to look at the items in our sanctuary because they're both studying Tetzaveh. And Tetzaveh speaks about the priestly garments, whose descendants are now the garments of the Torahs. And that Torah portion starts out with the lighting of the lamp, sort of the predecessor to the Ner Tamid, or eternal light. So we opened the ark and we stood and talked with these almost 13-year-old boys. It's pretty cool, actually. We were in like rabbinic geekdom. I don't know if they were as excited, but we were pretty excited, you know? They at least got to see the really cool breastplates. Like there's one that has a little teeny ark on the front and mini Torah inside and stuff like that. So I think they liked it. So one of the things we discussed with our students was, well, actually they told us, which we knew, but we were eliciting from them, was the fact that in the beginning of the Torah portion, our ancestors are told that they're supposed to bring the olive oil, pure olive oil, to the priests to light the menorah or lamp or light in the sanctuary. This was in the tabernacle, the portable sanctuary that our ancestors carried through the wilderness, the predecessor to the temple in Jerusalem, the predecessor to our synagogues. The Israelites were the regular folks, and they were to bring the oil to the priests, and it was a team effort to keep the lamp lit. As we talked with our students, I turned and looked and pointed out to them the gold menorah that you've all seen in the large sanctuary. And while that's a mid-century modern contemporary piece, beautiful as it is, it harkens back to the description of the one in the tabernacle, which is described as a gold 7-branched candelabra, a menorah. The one described in Torah has sort of floral-like, called calyxes actually, floral-like cups to hold the oil. The menorah of the tabernacle was the first menorah. It was the menorah or lamp that preceded what we call a menorah today, or the chanukiyot or Chanukah menorah, the one that we know that has 9 branches. We light for the 8 nights of Hanukkah. Wednesday, as you probably know, we'll begin Hanukkah and the lighting of our chanukiyot. Our sages are rather specific about that light in the tabernacle, and they're very specific about the lighting of the Hanukkah lamp. Remember, before candles, before electric menorahs and all that, olive oil is the preferred oil. Everyone can light. Gender's irrelevant. We've all, they say, experienced the miracle. And the miracle to the rabbis of the Talmud is the one that so many of us, maybe even all of us, were raised on, right? That the light lasted. There was this one cruse of oil, and that it lasted for 8 days. That's kind of revisionist history, and it's beautiful not to burst anyone's bubble. The rabbis of the Talmud were looking to miracles. They were looking to God. They were looking to faith. They were not looking to emphasize military victory or fighting. The rabbis of the Talmud were also ever so specific about the placement of the Hanukkah light. I invite you to listen. We read in Talmud, our sages taught the Hanukkah candle. It is a mitzvah to place it at the door of one's house, on the outside. And if one is living in an attic, which I'm going to take to be anything but the ground floor, you should place it in a window facing the public area, so facing out for others to see. And in times of danger, one may place it on their table, that is inside, and that is sufficient. So think about that instruction as I repeat it. Put the lamp by the door, on the outside. If you live upstairs, put it in the window. And if you live in a time of danger, put it inside. Think about why we are instructed to put the menorah on the outside of our homes. Our great commentator Rashi explains it really simply, to publicize the miracle. When we put the Hanukkah lights on the outside, we are announcing to the world that we're celebrating Hanukkah and celebrating the miracles of Hanukkah. The miracle of victory, the miracle of the oil, the miracle of the few over the many, the miracles of courage and principles too. The caveat to putting the Hanukkah lamp outside or facing the street is that we shouldn't do it if it endangers us. And that caveat is echoed later by Maimonides in the 12th century in his code of law, Mishnah Torah. Now, in the past year, there's been much conversation and much written about what we should do publicly as Jews. Many have asked us about wearing a Jewish star, keeping your mezuzahs up, or even putting the chanukiyot in the window. And at the same time as many have wrestled with that, many others have demonstrated their Judaism publicly and with pride. They're not easy questions. And I, for one, do not presuppose what anyone should do and would never judge anyone. As Rabbi Geffen, Rabbi Leisman, Cantor Goldstein, and I have said to many, we can't tell you what to do. But I have been thinking about this for myself. I've recalled conversations with many in our community, those who grew up in Iran, and countless conversations with friends, colleagues, and congregants who grew up in what was then the Soviet Union. Places and times when showing their Judaism put them at risk of losing life or livelihood. And I certainly powerfully understand that our current times are physically and spiritually dark in many regards, and that there may be among us those who are in physical danger. For me, there are two questions. One, am I in danger? And two, what is the impact of placing my Hanukkah menorah with its miraculous light in the door or window? Rabbi David Wolpe writes that the candles of the Chanukah are a reminder that darkness need not prevail. Without hope, we would again and again have disappeared in the black hole of history. You may recall that on Rosh Hashanah, Rabbi Leisman invited us to consider hope. He invited us to consider it as more than just a sort of touchy-feely, warm, fuzzy feeling, more than an assumption or simple view that things will get better. Rabbi Wolpe says, too, I quote Rabbi Wolpe as he says, hope is the faith that together we can make things better. To me, then, the question is, how do I make things better? I look to the Hanukkah lights and I see reminders of courageous standing up for principles. I see a challenge to me to act and protect the freedoms I value. I see the importance of history and tradition, and the importance of telling our story so that the next generation and our greater community understand it and understand the responsibility that accompanies our history. For me, lighting the lights is a physical reminder to roll up my sleeves, use my voice to seek justice, and stand for and by my convictions. And sharing that light disseminates the message as it speaks to what our tradition calls persume nisa, proclaiming the miracle. In the words of my father in a sermon I found in my Hanukkah file this week, Rabbi Greene, he wrote, there's no date on his sermon, but I figure it's somewhere in the 70s or 80s. I think the 70s, actually. He wrote, we retell and reinterpret the meaning of Hanukkah in each generation. The miracle of light will continue to have meaning only if we rededicate ourselves to its spiritual significance, if we dedicate ourselves to action. So back to that field trip to the sanctuary on Tuesday, we spoke with our students about that partnership, the partnership between the priests and the rest of the community in lighting the light in the ancient sanctuary. For us here today, in our sanctuary and beyond, lighting the Hanukkah lights is actually an individual pursuit. I mean, we may do it with friends and family, but it's on each of us to do. But when we all do it, we engage in the increase of sanctity or holiness, ma'alin b'kodesh. You may recall, we've taught I don't know how many times, right? Like Geffen and I were talking about earlier, that there's an argument recorded in Talmud between Hillel and Shammai. Yes, we know Hillel wins. But Shammai said we should put 8 lights in the Hanukkah lamp and we should decrease each night and get down to 1. Hillel says, no, we should put 1 in and increase every night because ma'alin b'kodesh, we increase in matters of holiness. So let's take that principle and expand upon it. Let's increase in matters of holiness. Imagine the power if we all light the lights. And we all rededicate ourselves to the light's spiritual significance, to its holiness. Imagine if we dedicate ourselves to hope, to the faith that together we can make things better, and then to the action to accomplish that. Imagine that light. Shabbat Shalom.